Well, here we are, Dave Fenoy here. It's another Wednesday, another Ask Dave Fenoy Anything. And I hope everybody's doing well, staying safe, not coming down with the corona. Um, it's been here's some people are showing up. Good to see you. Stop on by. And got a guest coming up in just a little bit. But before I jump in, just want to talk about a couple of things. Since this coronavirus lockdown, more and more and more of clients who would never have used anybody's home studio before are asking about your home studio. And I know I've mentioned this before, but now is the time to, if you're serious about voiceover as a career, to get your home studio together. And you can spend a lot, you can spend a little. And when I'm talking with my guest today, we're going to find out some of the things he knows because although I've been doing this a long time and I know something about equipment, he knows more. He's really into this stuff, which is one of the reasons I want to have him. Besides that, he's a friend. He's a really good guy. And why don't we just go ahead and say hello now? There he is. What's happening? And you know what? And I've got your girls. Oh, I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing. There you are. There you are.
Learn how to use my mic.
And I
yeah.
I made a mistake here, and I didn't. I've still got your girl's name up there. We'll just remove that.
It's a much cooler name, though. You can call me Mara.
No,
Okay.
I'm not
I'll
going to do
take
that. Jordan Reynolds, everybody.
What's up?
Well, you and introducing you to my audience here. You are a multi-threat in this business. You're a voice actor. You're a producer of demos. And you're somebody that people could turn to for advice on putting their studios together.
Yeah.
How did you become this triple threat?
Good question. In order, in short, it went voiceover, demo producer, audio engineer, if you will, like as far as helping people with voiceover studio specifically in the tech. But essentially, my background's in tech and computers. So before being able to perform and talk for a living, it was all working in an office on computers, building computers, setting up networks, nerdy stuff. And on the side, it was always like this voiceover thing was on my mind. People kept saying, "You have a nice voice. You should do radio." I'm like, "Oh, okay," And so I started researching it, and I'm like, "Oh, cool. You need a home studio." Okay. So what's that? And then, I can also do music with it. All right. Because my family's musical, I'm musical, and I'm like, we can do music and I can do voiceover. So I really nerded out on the home studio setup process. And I went way over, like I learned more than you need to know for voiceover, right? And so I kind of dabbled in that for a long time, finally was like, maybe I should get good at voice acting so I can make a living and pay off all this gear I bought. Put these skills to making some money and leaving the day job for good. And so I eventually did that. And when I made my first demo, which I don't recommend, but I had years of research behind it and nerding out and stuff. Like I listened to literally probably 1,000 or 2,000 demos over the course of years before.
I'm going to stop you for a minute because that thing you said, I made my own demo. I made my own first demo too. Mine sucked. Yours probably wasn't as bad as mine. But
probably was.
Once again, I those who are listening, I don't recommend trying to make your own demo. I'm sure there's somebody like you, maybe yours was really good. Most people are going to screw that up. Now, do go on.
No, you're fine. No, and that's why you saw me like, I made my own. But anyways, so I took that risk, and I'm like, I compared it skill-wise, but more so production-wise to the people who are making the big bucks, right? And I'm like, production-wise, it lives up. Skill-wise, it's on its way. There's work, but it wasn't terrible. I had been training, and I trained enough before I made that. It wasn't like, I got really good at audio. Now I'm going to make my demo. No. It was like, I got really good at audio, good enough at audio. And then I was like, hey, I need to be able to perform, right? Yeah. So lots and lots of training, lots and lots of practice. get that under my belt over the course of a few years. And then I'm like, okay, now let's execute on making the demo, because I'm being cheap about it, but I think I can pull it off. And the response I got was really good. People legit thought I flew to LA and like got a big time producer to do it. And this was all from Colorado, which is where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
So the response was really high, and people just quickly turned into, hey, will you produce my demo? You know, I'm like, yeah. I had no idea what to charge. I undercharged because I was afraid, you know, of like not living up to what they would expect, you know. So
Yeah.
the rest is history on the demo side of things. And what came from that is by working with, you know, being in Colorado, I didn't have a lot of my demo clients. They would be remote. They might be in LA, they might be in Massachusetts. So I was recording them live remotely, like over Source Connect, right? And I would hear people's home studio setups, and they were so different. Like they could have the same mic and the same preamp and even a similar toned voice, but holy crap, did it sound different.
Well, you know what? I think a thing that a lot of people don't recognize, that the first thing you have to start with is the space that you're going to be working in. That space has to be correct. Otherwise, the best microphone, the best preamps, the best gear is not going to make a difference.
Exactly. It is the most important thing. You can. I made a video. It's quite old. I need to do an updated one. It's more of like I'm ashamed of the reads of my voiceover skill.
Well, now, how long ago did you do that demo?
That demo was it was either 2011 or 2012.
Okay.
So I need to pull up the file, but I'm pretty sure it was even maybe 2011.
And you haven't updated that demo yet?
No, not yet. I'm just like riding off it, you know, like I submitted it to a big time agent in LA, and they're like, this is great, don't ever update it.
Okay, so, you know, now I'm almost sorry I had you on. That's some of the worst advice ever, except I did the same thing. And you know, I'll tell you what happens when you're working a lot. You tend not to update your demo because you're busy working. As a matter of fact, sometimes you don't even think about it. I would think about it from time to time. Oh, I need to update that. Oh, another good job. Well, let me do that. And I finally did. And I did it with J. Michael Collins, and he did a really good job. But somewhere along the way, you know, J. Michael, Chuck Duran, and you are the people that I recommend people go to. One of the things I've liked about the demos that you have done, you have a younger approach. You have, I feel like you have a more modern approach to what a demo should be. So, yeah, I know you can't do all the demos in the world, and I'm not saying that their demos aren't good, but you bring, just like a photographer, just like any artist, brings something a little different to the table for people. Let's get some questions here. If anybody has had any. Oh, let's see. We're getting a little. Oh, yeah. Husband and wife EO power couple on back-to-back weeks. I see how you do.
I need to pull up the chat. I wonder if I could do that without streaming the video.
Well, they're just talking about you and Mara. And finally, for the first time in many years, I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
That was impressive.
Oh boy!
Marijuana.
Yeah. Is that how you remember? Okay. Well, I think what you're saying is so interesting that people are not asking a lot of questions. I'm getting there's a student of mine, and Theo. Hey, Dave. Hi, Jordan. Saying hello. Well, let's talk about home studios. What kind of spaces in your house or apartment might you think on a budget would be a good space for your home studio?
I mean, you hear it, it's kind of standard advice, but like any sort of closet is great.
With clothes in it.
What's that?
With clothes in it.
With clothes in it. Yeah, exactly. With stuff. I mean, even if you start with nothing in it and you don't put clothes in it, if you just put something soft in it and thick and pillowy and cover every possible surface that you can. It's really hard to over-treat something, especially if you have enough space around the mic. But the problem is if you have like a bigger room and you're trying to treat a corner and it's really echoey to begin with, and you start, like, you might get one of those. They're not all bad. It just depends on the mic and the voice, and we do it on the road all the time. But pillow forts, right? The more you start closing in on the mic, I have a mic right here in front of me. It's a 416. If I put pillows around it, it's going to take away some of, I don't have a lot of room echo because it's treated in here. But in general, it would be more echoey. And if you put the pillows up, it starts to tame that echo sound, right? In an untreated room. But the risk is it starts to get more muffled and kind of sounds a little like this. And it sounds, especially like on a voice like yours, it's going to make that deep resonance really sound too much. It's going to cover everything else in the voice. So you have to find that balance within that closet of covering up the areas, the hard surfaces as much as you can with as thick, dense, and squishy stuff as possible to absorb that sound. And even like my first booth was just a sliding door closet. So I had like 2.5 feet to walk in, and I was like this. So I couldn't do this because I'd hit the walls, right? I stapled blankets.
I got a comment from Theo again. I've stuffed my closet with a ton of pillows, towels, sheets in a small closet. Are closets terrible? Well, I think you're saying no, closets are not terrible.
No, I would prefer something that's a little bit more muffled and kind of like if it's almost like too kind of dead sounding, as opposed to it sounding more open and clear with too much echo, where it sounds like it's bouncing around the room. I would take a more muffled tone than a too open and echoey tone, if that makes sense to people.
Yeah, well, closets work, and you definitely want to get rid of that bouncing sound that destroys it's great when you're singing in the bathroom, but not otherwise. Let's see. Got a comment here from Natalie McIver. If you're an established VO talent with a well-known reputation, why do you need to update your demo other than perhaps to introduce new voices?
That's a great question.
I'll let you give me your answer. I have one, but go ahead.
Yeah. Now, the interesting word choice when you say new voices, I'm not sure if you're coming at it as like a video game or a character demo or a commercial demo, but we'll just assume it's either or. And regardless of the genre you're working in, if you are working like Dave, and myself, you are, of course, you're busy, and you may not be like approaching a new agent or trying to get additional work with that demo because you're very fortunate to be getting, you're so busy, right? But your skill set over 2, 3, 4 years, you're getting better. You should be, at least, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Some people they stall, and that's why I'm still regularly coaching as much as I can. I spend thousands of dollars every year, even though I'm a full-time voice actor. I can pay all my bills just with voiceover, not with demo, just with voiceover, but I still spend thousands as much as I can. I'm not saying it to brag, but I'm saying it because this is a skill set. It's just like a sport. You got to keep that up.
You know what? Let me interrupt you once again to reiterate that. Working voiceover pro, taking classes. From time to time, I will work with somebody. Because it's hard to be objective about yourself. Sometimes you need another pair of ears that you trust to tell you what they hear and guide you out of sometimes bad habits. And you can develop those bad habits in a number of ways. Perhaps you've had a long-term gig that has a very specific read. And one day that gig goes away and that read, no one's buying anymore. So now you have to work your way out of that read and find another way to approach copy. I think this happens a lot, especially with people who are stuck in one genre. That, especially if you're, say, a promo guy, and you've got a particular comedy read or a drama read, you can get stuck in I've got this thing that was working for me, and now suddenly it's not. And society moves on, and how we want to hear from people. The level of professionalism, we don't want to hear what we perceive as professionals anymore. We want to hear from people who are just people.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wait a minute.
It's going very natural. So, but yeah, I think the most important answer to that question, though, is just to finalize is the reason, like, for example, I just updated my commercial demo, which is your most widely used demo in voiceover, right? My previous one was 2016, and that was one of the tools I used to get with my dream agency, Atlas Talent, right? There's more variables than just the demo, but that demo's got to be good. And when I approached him in 2016, I rehashed it and made it fresh and new then.
Yeah.
And I've been working then, but my skill, holy cow, I've got like, here's how I word it. If you can take your current commercial demo and the same scripts and try performing them live now, like 4 years later, and if you can do it better, noticeably better, like you're a better performer on that exact same script.
And one would hope you would be a better performer 4 years later.
Exactly. Then it's time to, then it's honestly, it's going to be a good time to update it.
Yeah.
So.
I popped something up here that maybe you couldn't see, but Brian Kelly just worked with Jordan to tweak my studio recently. He was terrific to work with. Highly recommend. So
thanks, Brian.
There you go. There you go.
Exactly.
Another reason to tweak your demo, even if you're working all the time, sometimes you're not getting opportunities in areas that you would like to get them. Say you've been killing it with commercials and animation, and maybe even TV promos, but you'd like to do some video games. Well, that's a different animal than either of the other two. So you will need a new one then, and sometimes just because you're not getting hired, maybe it's your commercial demo for the kinds of things that you really think you can do. Sometimes you have to, well, let's see, I want this kind of read. I want to demonstrate that I can do that. Then you want to get some of that into your demo. Another thing I found when I went back before I updated them and I listened, you end up talking about things on the demo like VHS tapes and other things that no longer exist. That dates you. So you want to keep it current just so the material is kind of current as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
I could not agree.
And let's see. Get your questions in here. But I'm gonna ask you one. Everybody's putting their studios together now. We just talked about, you want a bigger, better room than a closet, but a closet can work. But what about microphones and other equipment? I was having a conversation with a mutual friend yesterday. I mentioned that you were going to be on. He said to say hello. Morgan from Rocket Sound.
Morgan.
And we were talking microphones, and I said, well, my 416 is there, my 103, that's usually what I'm using. And I said, often I've told people, look, the 416 or the 103, if you want the large diaphragm, will serve you forever. And he went, back up, hold it, Dave, hold it. Women with higher voices, often that 103 isn't the best mic for them. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there is no rule, right? Like that's never. I've recorded someone with a higher pitched voice, a female talent, on maybe even just one or two on the 103, and one sounded better. One was like, oh, this actually sounds pretty good. Like this is actually one of the best sounding mics because I'll use multiple mics on a demo session if they come to my studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually quite shocked at how good the 103 sounded on her. But in general, from talent I've worked with remotely, female talent who have a more sibilance in general, like the S, when I say sibilance, that's the S's, your voice, that creates a high frequency and a perceived harshness to the human ear. And it varies on everyone, and it varies on how much each mic picks it up. But in general, the TLM 103 can pick up that higher pitched, harsher part of a higher pitched female voice and enhance it, and so therefore it makes it sound a little not as pleasing to listen to. But there are every single mic is different, and like I said, the room is highly dependent. So if you're in a room that's a little bit like you don't have enough treatment in it, then those hard surfaces really accentuate that higher pitched frequency. But as far as microphones in general, like there's a whole wide range of microphones and there's no one size fits all. But a lot of times what I'll do is if someone will say, hey, give me a sample, let me know what mic you're currently using, and send me a sample with this script, and they record it. And then I analyze where their harshness in their voice and their sibilance is most prominent. And then I'll go look at the frequency response graphs of other microphones that I'm familiar with, a lot of microphones. And you can see how and the frequency response is literally like the sonic signature of that mic. And they all vary. This is no guarantee, but it's one way to where I could say, ooh, your sibilance is up in 9,000 kilohertz, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really predominant here. Oh, look at the TLM-103. There's got a big boost at 9,000. Probably not a good choice for your voice. But look at the Shure KSM32. That's one I've been recommending to female voices who have like a higher pitched voice. And it sounds great on 2 Talent that I recommended to. They bought it. It's about $550, so it's not an entry level. But
it's just above an entry level, Mike.
Yeah. It's a great, and it's super quiet, but it's got a really flat top end. So it's really good for female voices that tend to sound a little too sibilant and harsh. So that's like a great model I love to recommend if that's in the budget for women with a higher pitched voice, as an example.
I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of calls and emails to ask about mics. Let's look at another comment here. Theo again, is NS1 noise suppressor worth it? I use Audacity, which has noise reduction, but I've been told I should use the NS1 as well.
Let's see. Sorry, what was the beginning part of that question?
Is NS1 noise suppression worth it?
If it's on sale, yeah, because I think it goes on sale like for $29 all the time. Like just get on the Waves. So Waves is the company who makes the NS1 plugin, right?
Yeah.
Just for those who don't know what he's talking about. And it's like the easiest one size fits all noise removal tool that exists, in my opinion. And it's like a blend of noise removal and a gate. And a gate is something that just listens for volume. And if that volume gets below a certain level, so let's say it's like your room tone, then it will turn everything off. Like so no audio gets through. But when you speak, it opens back up. So the NS1 acts as kind of, in my experience, is both a gate and it listens for noise and tries to actually kind of artificially pull that out simultaneously. I think it's great if you can get it, like if you can get it for $29, get it. I use it. I'm not using it, when I record in this booth often, but sometimes I am if I have to do a really, really, really quiet read and I have to turn the gain up a lot. And then all of a sudden you can hear the tiny little fan in my booth. And then so that my noise floor will go from like pretty quiet to between my reads, my lines. Yeah. I slap the NS1 on there for the audition and then just dial it in. My favorite, people like crank it up to like 40 out of 100. If you just put up to 1 or 2.0 out of that giant meter, you'll see how much it's pulling out in between your phrases. So I don't recommend doing more than that unless if you're in a really noisy environment. But that's my long answer.
Yeah, often I find noise reduction is pulling out not just noise below a certain level, but certain frequencies, and often affects actually how your voice sounds.
Oh, it does. It can pull out stuff that
you want there.
Yeah, and I can. Unfortunately, that's probably the biggest problem I hear when people send me a processed version of their audio. Like, hey, Jordan, how does my processing sound? It's rarely like, oh, too much compression, too much EQ. It's most of the time I'm like, they don't even have to tell me what they did. I'm like, I hear noise removal. You're doing too much noise.
Yeah.
And they might be in a not ideal environment, which I get why they want to do that, but you have to find the happy medium. You don't want to pull too much, and that's working with just like someone like me or a pro like George Whittam or Dan Leonard. They can identify where that sweet spot is for you to pull out the noise to where it's pulling out enough to make it sound better without making your voice sound like it's kind of like on a bad Skype call or something.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm going to go through a few of these. Trakina White, Dave and Jordan, 2 exceptional VO talents, and Jordan is a demo-producing genius. Hi, guys. And, there's Alvin. Hello, family. Hello, back at you. Marie Claire Garcia. Dave, love the quarantine beard. Thank you so much. Erica, I have a beginner demo, but I'm working toward getting a pro demo. Jordan, you're at the top of my list so far. What are some of the ways to know that my skill is at a level where I'm ready for it?
It's a great question. Unfortunately, I don't get to work with as many people as I'd like for demos because, as Dave said, I do other voice talent first and then demo producer, and then I do the audio stuff for people. But it's really hard to gauge based on just like an audio sample here or like your existing demo. That gives me an idea, but if I'm unsure of someone's current skill level and if they want to spend money on a demo, and demos are not cheap, I do like a quick evaluation where I'll throw a bunch of scripts at them. and just direct them. See like, okay, how good do they take that direction, where I can gauge where they're at really quick off of some existing samples that they self-direct, and then off samples that I direct them on. Now, that doesn't quite answer your question as far as like, well, what if, just in general, how do you know if you're ready for a demo? I think the best way to do it is to, if you have a coach or if you have some VO Pro mentors that you can just quickly shoot a very specific question at them, like, hey, here are like 3 samples I've recorded, some self-directed auditions for my commercials, right? Do you think I'm ready for a new demo? Like, do you think, compared to my old one, do you feel like I'm better than this existing beginner demo I made? Is it worth spending X amount of dollars to go for it right now? Do you feel that I'm ready?
Or ready for my first demo?
Oh, first demo, right? I thought she said she had an existing
Well,
one.
she might have. I'm adding on to what you're saying.
Got it.
Because you have enough people that are knocking on the doors and taking classes. And, of course, everybody wants to get in there and get going. And one of the biggest mistakes you can make is doing your demo before you're ready.
Yep.
And there are demo producers who might be perceived as very good because what you get sounds great. But if they've helped you fool the industry, where, they've done their magic, we'll get a sentence from here, a word from there, a sentence from here, and now I'm going to sweeten this voice this way and add just the right music, and then everything sounds wonderful, but you can't duplicate it. They've probably taken your money and done you more harm than good. And I've seen that happen. I've been in too many sessions where the subject was this person who showed up and booked a job because they'd done that with an audition or came in on their demo, but they could not reproduce what their demo said that they'd be able to do.
Yeah, it's a fine line because, when every demo talent I work with, not every, but a lot of them will give me, will say something like this at the end of the demo. They'll say, wow, that was like, it was like a long, in-depth coaching session. Like I feel like I grew as a talent, skill level wise, through the demo process, because I get a lot of takes, right? Like because I want options, just like you do for a booking for a commercial. But I put people through the ringer, not to torture them. It's in their own best interest, but it's because I want to see if they got, one, what it takes, and two, if they can give me a wide range of options and not just be stuck in one kind of read for every damn spot, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's a delicate balance of knowing when you're ready. But yeah, asking coaches that you've worked with and asking some working pro mentors, just for their honest feedback, and make it as easy for them to answer. Don't write like 5 paragraphs. Just be like give maybe like 2 audio samples in your old demo, right? Like new audio samples and old demo, and be like, how do you feel? Do you feel like I'm ready?
Yeah. One thing's for sure, if you haven't done any coaching, you're not ready.
Yep.
Hey, got this one from Brad Stevenson. Jordan, any idea when you're going to get enough time to open a demo production back up? Demos with Chops site says you're on hiatus.
Hiatus makes it sound like I'm like on an island somewhere just chilling, when the fact of the matter is like, no, I'm quite the opposite right now. But I don't. Let me put it this way: sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Right now, I'm slowly opening it back up to people who have reached out to me in certain times and whatnot, and then I hopefully can go more public if those don't fall through. That's kind of the most I could share at this point. But yeah, keep checking the website, and if you've reached out to me before in the past, before I kind of put the gates up, you have a better chance of getting in. I know it sounds really pretentious, but I can't work on everyone's stuff, and because I take a lot of time on every demo, I do not crank them out. I'm very detailed. I make them very high quality, and that's at a cost of time, unfortunately.
You remind me of me in that case. One, I'm only doing video game demos now. I need to have worked with you to do it, and I take some time. We spend a lot of time finding the right copy for you, and getting the right reads, and making sure that you're well rehearsed, so that your demo is going to sound good, and you know what you're doing. You're going to come in and be ready, and we can really show off the things you're trying to do. I try to find the essence of a person, because no actor can play all parts. And if I can find the you, that special thing in you, and let your voice be the hero of your demo, now you're doing something.
That's a great way to put it. Let your voice be the hero of your demo. That's really cool. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You may quote me.
I will. No, I'll send you residuals. Don't worry.
Oh, there we go. Let's see. Ben Pronsky. Got to say, there's some pretty rad hair on the screen. I didn't read this before I put it up here. Pretty rad hair on the screen right now. Here's a question. I've used both SC Standard and IPDTL for sessions recently, and personally have preferred. Oh boy, it's only on for 20 seconds. Let me get you back here. There, Ben. I've preferred IPDTL. How about you guys? What's your favorite connection source these days?
Man, unfortunately, I don't have a simple answer because it just depends. But for usability and intuitiveness and kind of like getting connected to someone or adding someone new and getting and routing everything, IPDTL, I love them. I love the company, but the interface, like, if I, as an audio engineer, when I hop in a few times a year to use it, is like, if I'm hopping in as a talent and they just send me a link where I type in my name and I'm connected, piece of cake. But I'm talking about it if you have to like add someone and then figure out how to connect with them or be available for them to connect to you if you already have a paid account. It's like every time I have to like figure it doesn't go well. Like it's very confusing for me.
Yeah.
Which I think it's like more designed around for radio people perhaps, but when it's connected it runs great. So but for the sake of simplicity and just getting it done for a web-based connection, I like Source Connect now, which is Chrome. It's just a lot easier to get set up and get going, and it's pretty much just as stable as IPDTL. And then Source Connect Standard, which is the app. It's a piece of software that runs on your computer. For those who don't know what the difference is I prefer that. I do way more sessions for that as a voice talent than the web-based ones.
Yeah.
And
I
prefer it because it's a lot more stable.
You have clients that will not use Source Connect now. You must have the next level up. But there is a fairly new thing. It's still growing. Connection Open. I was just watching. I've been a tester for them, and it's getting better and better. This would be a wonderful time for them to blossom, because everybody needs them right now. For some reason, they are much more popular in Europe and other places on the planet than here just at the moment. I was watching some videos of studios that do dubbing, which has become a huge business. We used to think of dubbing as, it's those Spanish guys dubbing English stuff into Spanish. But now it's everybody everywhere dubbing shows from everywhere into their language. And the level of acting and so forth has gotten better. And they have to work from around the world. And I'm seeing some really good things about Connection Open. And I'll tell you, on another day, I'll connect with you and let's do a little test of that. And I've been impressed. I hope you will be too.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm just now looking at it and Googling it. I'm assuming it uses the Opus codec, which is what all these Chrome-based services use. It's just how they display it. But I think the back end is mostly the same on all these. That's kind of the irony. It's like it's the same guts, but it's how it's presented and how you navigate it. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's all running off of the Opus codec, which is built into Chrome.
Okay, let's see. I've got a question here. Damon, what would be some name brands for a second purchase upgrade mic for a male with a naturally high range? He's grown, but he sounds 17.
He said like mid to higher range?
With a naturally high range.
Okay. Oh, here it is. I have the Facebook thing open. Name brands for a second upgrade mic. Okay.
I'll put him up there again.
Name brand. I mean, you really can't go wrong with like brands that give you kind of a wider price range to pick from, or like Audio Technica. And Neumann has the TLM102 is pretty good. I've heard the TLM102 sounds pretty good on some mid-range voices or higher range. but their 103 may not be a great choice. But Audio-Technica has, I heard there was actually a female talent who has the AT4047, I think, or was it the 57? Yeah, the AT4047 SV, I think. There's two models.
Yes,
it's
you are a nerd.
Yeah. Okay, Audio-Technica AT4047 SV. I like the price point. It's at $700, and it was just really natural on, and she had a higher voice.
Yeah.
Well, I was expecting,
what do you think about the and this is a less expensive microphone, the AKG C214?
I've only heard it on a handful of voices.
Okay.
And I haven't loved it.
Yeah. I have one, and when I've used it, I've really liked it, but I keep going back to my 416 and my 103.
Sure.
But it has a nice, warm, smooth sound.
It does. I think it would. I'm actually pretty familiar with the frequency response because there's a particular talent who was using it, and she has a higher pitched voice. And it was, I looked at the frequency response on the 214, and it's got a lot of like a really big high end boost. And it does have that low end boost, which kind of made her voice sound kind of woofy in the closet she was recording in. And in addition, it was making her S's and harsh part of her high voice harsher.
Ooh.
And so I was just like, so she's since upgraded the KSM32, and it's like, wow.
Okay.
Like night and day.
And there you go. Here's a good question, Natalie McIver. What's the cost of building a professional studio, including the type of line ISDN? Oh, of course, you're not going to get ISDN these days. Source Connect needed to record.
The price. Okay. The cost. Okay. So assuming you have a computer to start with, all right, which I'm assuming you do, or even an iPad, but I'm assuming you got some, even just like a cheap laptop. Any computer really can get the job done for recording audio. So that's the least of your concerns if you already have it. But if I had to put a ballpark in, like let's say you bought some like moving blankets, and you bought even just like a decent USB mic and a good pair of headphones, under $500. I'm not gonna lie, like that's just getting started, right? Like I'm not talking, but she's saying professional for Source Connect and everything. Okay, now Source Connect has monthly plans, but let's just say you buy it. I think it's $650 outright for standard. And then if you have more of a professional level microphone, like a $500 mic, I'm just doing the math in my head, and like a $300 audio interface, $1,000 to $1,500. I feel like don't quote me on this, but like that's the range you can get away with having a pro level sounding studio. I've been shocked at some of the equipment that people I've worked with to evaluate their audio. They'll have like a $1,000 mic going into a $200 preamp or audio interface. Sounds good. It's working, and they're making like six figures a year. So
yeah.
But their space sounds really good. They're in a nice booth. Or they're in a well-treated room.
Once again, you got to start with that space. The best mic, the best preamp, the best everything else, including your connections, your cords, your cables.
Yeah.
If the room ain't right, it ain't gonna be right.
Yeah. There you go. Another quotable.
Yeah. Well, let's. Thomas Machen, how you doing? I found the CAD E100 works great for women with higher sibilance issues. Between that and the RX7DS tends to touch the specific frequencies involved and lower them just a touch. It's usually enough to take the edge off and make it sound natural. Oh boy, make it sound natural. Notching EQ takes a ton of time if you're working with multiple people. Oh boy,
yeah. No, I agree. I have the CAD E100S, and I've recorded a lot of people on it. Mara loves the mic. I recommend that mic all the time for like a good mid-range, smooth, and I like it because it's speaking of like pickup patterns, most of these other mics we're mentioning, they're cardioid, and they pick up sound. If you could see my hands, like if the mic's in front of me, they kind of pick it up like in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then a shotgun mic, which is the 416 that I have in front of me, is it's not exact, but it's instead of it being like this, it's more like this. I'm exaggerating a bit. It's narrow, so it's not listening to other crap going on around you. It's really focused on your voice. The CAD E100S, even though it's a large diaphragm condenser, it is like a hypercardio. It's essentially it's not as wide, but it's not as focused as a shotgun. It's like in the middle,
Ah,
which allows it's more forgiving in less ideal sounding rooms.
and of course you realize there are people scribbling notes frantically to get what microphone is that? Now,
Yeah.
no, by the same token, one of the things that's happening in the industry now is because we're in our homes, we're not going to studios. Clients are getting in touch to find out what kind of equipment you have. They want to know what microphones you have. And most of them are not going to know that CAD. They're not going to know a whole lot of the microphones that we've talked about that are decent microphones. They want to hear Sennheiser. They want to hear Neumann. Maybe Shure. Maybe. But I definitely Sennheiser, Neumann, the better AKGs. If you get into a Gefell, well, that's a whole other thing. Or there's some other expensive mics out there, but Neumann and Sennheiser are kind of the two brands everybody's really thinking about.
It is unfortunate that it can be so exclusive when they can just read your equipment list on your website and like, I don't see Neumann or Sennheiser, so it must not be a pro. But I'm of the nature, it's how do you present yourself? Are your demos really good already? Is your website really up to snuff and confident and clear, and not like super quick, like thrifty voiceover? Like don't make yourself sound like a used car salesman. Right?
Joe Thrifty voiceover. I saw a Fiverr commercial for voiceover. I was insulted. I wanted to come through the television and kick somebody.
It was on TV.
It was
not
on
YouTube?
TV. I've only seen it a couple of times. It was late at night, and basically it was, why work with the prima donnas? You can get a great voiceover for $25, and it's I want to strangle you.
Oh my God.
Oh, here's a good question, Alvin Pitts. What's too much to spend on a demo?
Oh my God. That's a funny question because it all depends on what you get, right? So, but I really don't. I got to be careful on how I answer this as a demo producer, and I respect so many other demo producers, but I feel like the price should reflect the quality, and but there's ranges. Some people charge $1,000. Some people are charging $5,000. Right.
And it depends on where on the planet you live. If you're in England, if you're in the UK, they cost much less.
Yes. Yeah. I think in the US they cost a lot more. So I think it really just depends on where are you at in your career. What are your goals with the demo? Like, right, if you want to approach a bigger agency and try to get signed with like a big LA agency or something, and you've been training for a while, and this is like your second or your third demo, spending in the $3,000 range, I know it's a lot of money, but like, holy crap, the investment. Like, if it gets you signed with the big agency, and you have your demo up on your website, and you have it up on like Voice123, and anywhere that's free that you can list your demo, put it up there, and you have a chance of just getting booked off it. I get booked off mine all the time. Not like I get booked off auditions more, right? You still got to audition a lot. But my demo gets me in the door to potential clients to be considered to audition, or I just get booked right off the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's good enough. So it just really depends on a lot of parameters. But do your homework, ask around. And if you're already, I'm not saying you are, whoever asked the question, but if you're already just trying to find the best deal, as far as like price goes on the demo, you're already going to be shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
This is like, you can get away with a cheaper mic and really good acoustic treatment, and it looks ugly and it's pillows, but if it sounds good, great. But you can't get away with like a $500 demo if you have big aspirations.
Yeah.
So let's leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Annie Wood. Hi, guys. Thanks for adding this. In a recent audition, they wanted to know what kind of preamp I have. Is that needed to sound mega pro? If so, why and what kind? And Jordan, you are super reverbing. That's my setup. I think you're coming through my speakers and back through my microphone, and I'm supposed to be able to not have that happen. but it seems to be happening anyway. Um,
Take your time. Let me look at that question. Hold on.
I'll bring the question back up.
Thanks.
We
Yeah,
go.
I have to. I have the Facebook thing open on another monitor, but I don't see it on the Skype call that we're on.
Okay. I'll read it again. Hi, guys. Thanks for doing this. In a recent audition, they wanted to know what kind of preamp I have. Is that needed to sound Mega Pro? If so, why and what kind? And Jordan, you are super reverbing. Not your fault.
She's like, maybe you should fix that, Jordan. Maybe you should learn audio. I know you didn't mean that. But yeah, well, Dave tries to sort that out. So the preamp they're asking because they want to know if it's like a Focus, right? Scarlett, like they're gonna probably be okay with that as long as the audio, like if they already hear the audio. Let me go back to kind of the whole Sennheiser Neumann thing, right? The brand name recognition already is great, but if you can't afford that, and many people who are getting started or mid-grade through their career can't quite drop that cash, right? But if you can prove it through, like I said, your branding, how you present yourself on your website, if you have something that looks, a beautiful recording space, even if it's not a booth, if it's just something that looks nice enough that you can at least put a picture up of and have good lighting, there's all these other tricks. And then most importantly, just have a raw audio sample. If your audio already sounds really good and you only have a $300 mic and a $150 audio interface, but you've gotten the thumbs up from people like George Whittam and myself saying like, this sounds good. Like this is a pro sound. I would record you for a professional gig. Then you need to flaunt that, right? Because as soon if the people who are going to be hiring you for this gig can already hear how good it sounds, they're not going to care if it's not a Neumann. They're like, if it sounds good, it is good. So back to the preamp thing. If you have like a cheaper preamp, yes, the knee-jerk reaction, they'll be like, uh-oh, it's, an entry level affordable preamp. But if you have the opportunity to either give them a raw audio sample in the audition you're sending, or just have it right on your homepage, on your website or on your studio section, make it very obvious to hear your raw audio, they're going to click on that. And then you can prove yourself without having to have the super expensive equipment. That's if it sounds good already. So
I've got a little follow-up question on that. How about the hardware as opposed to the plugins for?
Sure. Plugins have gotten really good, and probably what you're getting at is like the Apollo, the Universal Audio Apollo has become really popular.
I have switched to it.
I have too. I'm not on it right now, but when I'm recording in there, I record through it, and Mara does it in her studio, and because you have endless
possibilities.
Yeah, it's just like there's all these different flavors, and that's like that's a luxury. You don't need that, right? It's not gonna book you the gig.
Well, no. First, the talent. You got to have the talent
exactly.
and the skill.
But as far as how they sound, they're really good, especially the Universal Audio Apollo ones. You have the opportunity of running these plugins live on your audio as it goes into your computer, essentially. So instead of you doing it raw and then bringing up like a Twisted Wave stacks or chains, FX chains, whatever you want to call it, and all the DAWs, you get to do it live, and they're really good. So if you have someone like myself or George or Dan set it up professionally, just because a lot of them, they have a lot of knobs, a lot of settings, a lot of presets. And they might have a voiceover preset, and it usually doesn't sound very good.
It sounds terrible.
It usually ends up like sounding a bit like this or something, right?
Yeah, well, it'll be too much compression, and the mid range will be all that's there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. I've got a question here, or a comment. Most of the studio I've been working with tend to demand Source Connect and not Source Connect now. But I've been asking if they'd like to try Connection Open a few times. They've actually tried it with me and loved it. Less delay. Yeah, I've recommended it to a number of people in some studios, and those who have tried it like it. Sooner or later, I think it's going to catch on, because it was designed for musicians to be able to play together on different parts of the world, and
very cool.
It's a very cool program. Let's see. And we were just talking about that. How do you feel about interfaces like Apollo that run real-time plugins and I think from what you were saying that you approve.
I approve. Just make sure, feel free to experiment and like learn and try read the manual and look up YouTube videos. Like if you want to go hog wild, do it. Just don't do it on most of what you're submitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say.
Well, I find that because you have the possibility of doing 100 different things with a sound file, doesn't mean that you should do 100 different things with a sound file.
Less is more.
Less is more. You're going to find that you want to find your setting, that setting that is right for you, and tweak till you find it, and then leave it alone.
Yeah. Leave it, unless if you're like super nerdy, like Mara and I, like we like Mara's just, she's like coming up with a new chain every damn day. Like she tweaks her stuff more than I do. It's really funny.
Wow. We are talking about sound, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mara tweaks her microphone models and her preamp, and she just loves to play with it. And if she's unsure, she's like, I think this sounds good. I may, she's definitely like, she knows her stuff, right? But she always.
I'm sorry. That brings me to, how do you know you can trust your ear? Sometimes you're listening and you're listening and you're like, does this sound good? I think it sounds good. I'm not sure if it sounds good. Oh, that sounds a little different. Do I like that better? How do you know when you can trust your ears?
I mean, just as a voice talent who isn't an audio engineer, it's well, one thing you could do. It's a really simple trick that just audio engineers do is like you are playing with it as a voice talent. You're like, oh yeah, this sounds good, but you've probably been doing that for like an hour, right?
Yeah.
Your ears are like, you're fatigued, you're biased, you're unclear. Just step away for 10 minutes, like go into another room, take off those headphones, let normal air hit your eardrums, all right? And then come back and listen to it. And if you still like it, it might be usable and good. But I have to say, I've been working with a lot of talent lately and hearing their processing that they set up themselves or maybe like a musician engineer set it up or something. And I have to say, more often than not, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much processing. It's too heavy of compression, too much noise removal. But I'm just talking like preamp stuff. It's usually too much compression and too much EQ. There's too much high end boost, and like a lot of guys' voices have way too much low end boost in it to make it sound beefy, and it sounds overdone. And if you want to work like the top tier stuff, that's why they're asking about our gear and everything, because they want to know if you have it and they want to compare it to what they're hearing in the file.
And what they actually want, especially these days, is something very, very natural. There's still some genres where, there's going to be altering the voice and more compression than less. But most of the time, they're looking for a very honest, real voice to come through these days. Interesting you said for 15 minutes. I often find I will have done an audition and I'll like it, when I did it. But I always like to go away and come back 15 minutes or an hour later and take a listen if I have time, because sometimes, I don't know why, but in the lockdown here, we're getting more of those, oh, hey, I know you just got this. Can you get it back to me in half an hour?
Yeah.
I like to be able to come back and ask myself the question, not does it sound good, but do I believe this? Do I believe that read? Do I believe that guy?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good idea for everyone to do, is to step away and come back. Sometimes, we're in that, oh, I love me. I love my voice. I love how I sound. I love how I hit that word. It's so fantastic. And then you come back and you go, oh, God, that was bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. But to top that off, and if you come back and you still like it, then if you can't afford to hire someone like an audit and you're just trying to play around it, send it to a few friends, some of your VO buddies who are a little techie and nerdy, right?
Yeah.
And then if you really want to get it like serious, like I work with everyone from just like, oh my God, I need to get this noise out of my studio, or there's a buzz, or that level of stuff, to guys who are working a ton like yourself, and they're like, ooh, I added this one little panel in this one corner of the room, and do you like how it sounds? maybe I think it's a little echoey, or I don't know. I got this new mic. I just want a little bit of butter on it, like a little bit of compress. Can you dial that in for me? Right. That's just like tiny incremental stuff.
Yeah.
But that's when you really need a pro if you're don't have that skill set already, you know?
Well, we are getting close to the end here, but I want to get through a few. First of all,
yeah, I'm good on time.
Garcia, frantically scribbling notes. Mike's suggestion for low, mid-pitched female voice, good brand for cables.
Okay, here's what if you can afford it, because you don't want to go cheap on cables, all right? But if you can afford it, go for Mogami Gold, and you can buy them on Amazon or probably B&H and stuff. But Mogami Silver is good. That'll still get the job done. But I like Mogami Gold, and just buy the cable length. But that will last you your entire life. Yes, okay, yeah. So it might be you're like $60 for like 10 feet. It seems ridiculous,
but
right?
It's 10 feet that will last forever.
Yeah. I think one of your video game characters says that line.
Probably.
Yeah. It's 10 feet that will last forever.
Or it's something from a porno movie.
That too. Anyway, I was thinking that. Hey, you went there. I didn't say it, but you thought it and said it and executed. But all being said, other cable brand. If that's too much, because I know everyone's balling on a budget. Sweetwater, they have a Proco line. It's PRO-CO, I think. And those are great. Like Sweetwater's a great company, but they have their own cable. It's not Mogami as far as like the components of it, but every time I've had people use those in their studios, they're super quiet, clean. They don't pick up electronic noise like the cheaper mic cables do. So Sweetwater Proco if you're on a budget. Mogami Gold if you just want to get it done and be good for the rest of your career.
Yeah, Sweetwater's a nice spot to go to for gear. The industry is fragmented, and there's no one voice like Don LaFontaine. Don't try to be the next anybody. Focus on being the best you. I could not have said it better myself.
I like that.
Let's see. Yes, Michael Glover says you sound better now, meaning the echo isn't there.
Oh, nice.
Let's see. Jordan, since we're discussing microphones, have you had a chance to work with any microphone emulators like the Townsend Lab Sphere L22 or Slate System? This is almost like a setup question.
I know. Well, I don't have one in my booth yet, but Mara dropped the ball and got it like I think
she won't let you use her Townsend, will she?
No. I can use it, but it's just like when I use her booth, I have to like log into my accounts, and it's just like it's a process, right? So that sounds ridiculous, but we did that for a year and a half. But there's just something like when it's just last minute urgent stuff. It's when I have this booth to work in, I'm gonna hop in there, but when I have used it, and I've helped her, tweak and set up all the stuff in there. It's yes. So the long answer is yes. I have used it and I love it. Now I've also done a lot of comparisons based on not physically using the Slate mic modeler. So Slate has one called VMS. It's the virtual microphone system. And then there's a few others, but the other main competitor is called Townsend Labs. And they have a mic. What we're talking about, folks, for people who don't know, it's literally a physical mic, and you plug it in to your audio interface, and then through the power of software and plugins, you can pick from hundreds of different mic models. A Neumann U87, a Sennheiser 416. It's crazy. Like vintage stuff like U67 and U47. I mean, you name it, they got it pretty much. And they sound really good. And in the samples that I researched before she bought the Townsend, because I want to make sure we were going to get the best one, is I really was more impressed with the Townsend comparing it to original mic and then the virtual model version, right? Back to same recording, back-to-back files. The Slate one sounded a bit more hyped and bright.
Yeah.
And it was flattering, but more so for music, right? It worked better on music.
Yeah.
The Townsend was a lot more neutral and truer to the original mic, and I love how the Townsend sounds.
I find that a lot of headphones, a lot of monitor speakers are bass boosting because that has been popular over the last few years, and what I'm looking for is accuracy.
Yep.
So you got to be careful there. Let me get through a few more. How many of you guys end up with sweaty ears from wearing headphones too long? I try not to wear them. I was a disc jockey for a long time, and of course, when you're a disc jockey, you're into this thing all the time, baby. And you start listening to your voice, and you want to make everything sound cool. So,
Kiss my voice.
Yeah, it's 5 after 5, and we're coming alive. The big sound in the big town. So
now it's 10 after 10.
Yeah, I don't wear them unless I absolutely have to. Another question, asking on behalf of some of our newer VO friends, assuming that the pandemic ends in our lifetime, do you prefer to record talent in person or remote for demo production? Any advantage or disadvantage to talent, especially if your equipment may be an upgrade to theirs?
That's a great question. Man,
thank you, Brian Kelly.
Let me see if I can kind of outline. That's a really good question. Let me outline the pros and cons. I think if at the end of the day, I would prefer to record them in my studio, just because I got full control. If there's a certain mic I'm not liking, I can just swap it out, and it's endless possibilities, and I'm in full control of the sound. But more importantly, because the demo is about their performance, it's not all about the sound, right? As much as I want it to be as the audio guy, but I'm directing them, right? And I want the talent to be as comfortable and as focused on just being an actor as possible. Like that, I don't want them to have to grab a preamp gain knob or a headphone knob. Like, I just want them to just perform at their best, because they're paying a lot of money and it's game day, and this is permanent, if you will, going on their demo, right? So that's my answer as far as I do prefer they come in. But the advantage of them not coming in and working, in Ohio or whatever, is that they're in their own space. They're used to, they know how their voice sounds in that room with those headphones, because they will need to wear headphones because I have to direct them. And they can maybe be more comfortable and less nervous, right? Because they are in their own element. They're wearing the clothes they want. They don't have to put on makeup if they feel like they have to when they go out, right? There's all these psychological benefits that go into it for the voice talent. The disadvantage for me is that, and for them, is that I do have to give them between spots, like, ooh, we're getting a little loud. Can you now be engineer for 10 seconds? Turn off actor hat. Now go leave your booth if you don't have the knob in your booth. Go turn the gain down, now run back in, right? It really breaks that flow of just being a performer. It doesn't destroy anything at all, but pros and cons to both.
Okay. Well, you know what? We're about at we're just after 7, and usually it's to 7. But listen, man, Jordan, this has been a joy to have you on,
an honor.
And I know a lot of people their fingers are tired now from writing notes. But of course, this is recording on Facebook, so you can go back and go through and find the points that you missed. I'm going to figure out how to use the echo cancellation on this thing. I thought I had it. Apparently, I don't. So that your voice isn't coming back through my microphone, because I turned my down and say, "Oh, no, we can't hear you, Dave." And no, you. Nevertheless, thank you so much. A ton of great information. Tell Mara I said hello, and I'm gonna get you in my studio when this thing is over and we can all visit. And just, I think it's a good idea to have someone come in and do a little tuning from time to time. And I'd love to get you over to do that, and maybe when we do it, maybe I'll videotape it, and just put it out there and let people.
Put on my best outfit.
Well,
thanks for the warning.
You're not in your best outfit now?
No, just being the dumbass.
You didn't get dressed up for this?
We got no pants on. It's Zoom. Are you supposed to take all those posts are like
Zoom meeting people? You still need to wear pants, okay? It's gross.
All right.
There's all the guys. It's always dudes, and they're like, they got their tie, and then they got like the big old, like, their boxer shorts hanging out. They're like,
if you're gonna bother to put on a tie, you can put on some pants.
Yeah.
Say it. Anyway. We'll carry that conversation on later. Once again, thank you so much. And thank everybody for stopping by. Ask Dave Fennoy anything. We will be back next Wednesday. I may or may not have a guest, but I'll let you know. And once again, Jordan, thank you, man.
Dude, thank you so much. And thanks for the great questions, everyone. It's been an honor to be on here. This is super fun. Thanks,
all right.
dude.
Bye-bye.
Bye.